So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Reed, along with Susan Turk. We're going to be your co-host today. This is the last of a series of meetings that MOPAG has had with the Democratic candidates for St. Louis County Executive. The primary is on August 4th. We've set aside up to 45 minutes for each of our candidates today, Dr. Page and Mark Mantovani. That includes time for them to tell us about their candidacy, some curated questions that Susan will read, and chat questions that we get, and if time allows, some back and forth with the audience today, direct face-to-face conversation. So I think people are getting more familiar with Zoom. You know, at the bottom of your screen, you have a number of controls. If you want to submit a question through chat, just type it in the chat window and submit it by hitting the return key. Susan, anything else administratively I might be missing?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. All right, today we're very pleased that St. Louis County Executive Dr. Sam Page is with us today. Sam Page has been the president of the Missouri Society of Anesthesiologists and the Missouri Society of Interventional Pain Physicians. He's been a state representative, the chair of the county council, and with Steve Stenger's resignation, our county executive. He is married to Dr. Jennifer Page, and they have 3 sons. With that, I'll ask Dr. Page to take the floor.
Got it unmuted.
And if he's unmuted, he can take it. Hold on. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, well, thanks for the opportunity. I was trying to get on my laptop and my laptop said no, so I appreciate your patience. And I want to thank you all for letting me talk to you today. I'm Dr. Sam Page. I live in Creve Coeur with my wife, Jenny. She's also a medical doctor. We have 3 boys and a dog named Midnight and 3 backyard chickens. It's a full house, and I'm even happier to have the chickens and all the luxury that comes with that. I've just been reflecting on what's happened since I was here last time. When I spoke to you last time, I left immediately to go to a press conference to announce the first COVID-19 case in our county. And before I left, we were talking about the prescription drug monitoring program, St. Louis County's plans to get Narcan in our community, and our focus in St. Louis County on an equity agenda. And you heard a lot of the same great things we were doing, and you had a lot of really good questions. But back then, we were all sitting in the same room, sitting next to each other side by side. It was a much different world. It seems like yesterday, but you know, it was only a couple of months ago. But from that point on, everything we were working on in county government was put on pause. You know, as a medical doctor, I'm certainly used to working on life and death situations in an operating room. These life and death situations are not something that I expected to encounter in county government. And I know none of us expected us to see anything like this in our lifetimes. You know, I remember asking myself if I was prepared for this. We watched it move across Asia. We watched it land on the West Coast, and we didn't really have any you know, idea about the enormity of what was coming to us. And I did feel like I had a lot of weight on my shoulders, but I accepted it, and we, you know, we've reached the point where we are today. I'm constantly trying to figure out how to do good with the resources that we have. We have a great team in county government. We have a supportive family. My medical background has helped me a great deal to sort through the challenges of the coronavirus of COVID-19 and helped me make the decisions that we needed to make to put us in the position we are in today. Our stay-at-home orders went into effect much sooner than the rest of the country. Really, only the state of California had stay-at-home orders in place sooner than us. The decisions we made, we believe, saved lives, and I will continue to make decisions based on guidance from our public health experts and our medical experts. We are in the process of a slow and cautious reopening, watching the data, watching the hospital admissions, watching the testing results. You can follow along on the county's response to the coronavirus epidemic. We have press conferences, press briefings on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:30 in the morning. It's carried on my Facebook Live, Facebook page on Facebook Live, and certainly the networks cover it live as well. We've also created a transparency portal on county government. You can watch our encumbrances and the spending of the St. Louis County CARES Act. You can tune in to the St. Louis County Council Oversight Committee hearings. They are at 10 o'clock in the morning every Tuesday. And you can see where we're spending the $175 million federal stimulus grant on our three crises, the public health crisis, the humanitarian crisis, and the economic crisis. We have testing centers in all corners of the county. There was at one point a narrative that we did not have testing in North County or did not have testing in North County quickly. None of that is true. We were in North County within a few days of the rest of the region. And if you look at the zip code maps of where we've diagnosed COVID-19 cases in St. Louis County, you'll see that we spent a lot of time and energy in North County and directed a lot of resources where we know the problems are going to be. We can follow along what's happening at stlcorona.com. You can learn about where the testing locations are. It's the best resource really in the region. There's statistics there, testing results, the press releases, the transparency portal, and the hotline number if you have questions. We know that part of our community has been hit harder than the rest. Black people are contracting COVID-19 at a greater rate. They are dying at much greater rate than white people, almost at a 2-to-1 disparity. And we've responded appropriately, delivering hundreds of thousands of masks, millions of dollars of resources to the area that has been impacted the most. $6 million in funds went to provide food through our traditional partners in distributing food in St. Louis County. In fact, there's a food giveaway right now at Jamestown Mall in North County that's run by the Urban League and Operation Food Search. And we expect that 3,500 families will go through that line today. My office is working with clergy leaders to distribute masks in St. Louis County. We understand that a mask is very important, social distancing is very important, and we want to make sure that everyone in our region has access to the services that they need. We know that your zip code can determine your outcomes, your health outcomes, not just access to healthcare, but the social determinants of health. And this virus has shown a great spotlight on what we know have been decades of disparagement, disproportionate response and different levels of access to healthcare and other basic resources. And this COVID-19 epidemic has told a lot of our community in the world what we already knew, that our poorer communities, even African-American communities, have been hit much harder. In addition to working on the humanitarian relief, the public health relief, we're working with our businesses to get them going in a very thoughtful and responsible and cautious manner. Again, always keeping the health and welfare of people in our county at the forefront. And we are a very resilient community. I'm confident that the vast majority of our community understands the seriousness of social distancing and our public health orders, and they are respecting them. I do believe that our county and our residents will persevere, following our guidance and following the direction of our public health orders. We certainly have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We've distributed the funds in an equitable way to try and help the people who need it the most. If you have the opportunity, I would encourage you to log on to my county website and read our annual report. Before COVID-19, we had a very busy and productive office. We were working on many issues that are outlined in my annual report in my first 100 days. And we can go into a little bit of detail, and I'll be prepared to answer questions regarding those today as well. We've done a lot. Equity has always been the lens, the focus of my administration on every complicated issue that's been before us. We instituted many changes since I took office, including working to eliminate pay disparities between women and people of color. We stopped asking a salary history on everyone who applied for a new position in St. Louis County to fill a vacancy, making sure that we were not paying them based on what they made at their previous employment, but what they would earn in a new position. We've created an Office of Diversity and Inclusion, a similar unit in the police department. We have mandated prevailing wage on all county projects that are incentivized, raised the county minimum wage to $15 an hour, and also implemented paid family leave in St. Louis County. I do meet regularly with African American leaders, and our county is working on its first equity plan. We are tracking diversity in our appointments, and I'm very proud of my record in that regard. I've requested funding for Summer Jobs Lead program. I'm overhauling practices and policies and procedures at the Justice Center. We've put more resources there. We have corrections officers and nursing folks working together as a team. We recently finished testing all of the inmates in justice services in the juvenile detention center and all the employees. And to date, we have not had an inmate in justice services test positive for COVID-19, due in a large part to the policies that we've implemented there to keep them safe. We continue to expand our public health department. We've kept link markets open. We've issued the first ever report on mental health trends in the county. I signed a bill to prevent kids from getting access to tobacco and vaping products, and set the tone in that regard before it was attended to at the state or national level. I also instituted a ban on shackling pregnant people in our county jails, and we passed legislation that I signed into law to prevent domestic abusers from carrying a concealed weapon. We've instituted many programs through the St. Louis County Library and the St. Louis Area Diaper Bank to expand services that we provide through the Nurse Family Partnership. And this promotes health equity by serving low-income women and children with comprehensive evidence-based programming to strengthen and stabilize families. Under this contract, we help distribute 45,000 diapers for free each year to low-income families during regular home visits by trained nurses. And I asked the County Council to appropriate more than $100,000 for critical services and resources for women and children, survivors of domestic violence, including management and operation of the Kathy J. Wyman Shelter for Abused Women. And all of this began just over a year ago when I created a Women in the Workplace work group, and they gave me advice on how to improve the working environment for women in St. Louis County. And we didn't just listen to their advice, we implemented it. And because of this work, St. Louis County is one of 17 places in the region that are considered the best place for women to work. And it's the only government. It's one of only 3 entities with more than 500 employees who've also earned the best place for women to work in St. Louis County. We're working on many infrastructure projects as well. Many resources are going north of Delmar due to decades of disinvestment. And in one of my first decisions as county executive, we stopped a Trump administration policy to demolish over almost 200 units of public housing in Wellston. We were able to save those units working with our members of Congress and HUD, and now we're on a pathway to make $11 million of investment in affordable housing in the Wellston area. Addressing racial equality and the decades of disinvestment north of Del Mar is not something that we can do overnight, but it's something we can work on a little bit every day and keep our community moving in the right direction. Earlier in my administration, we released the county's first ever report on mental health disorders, providing information about the prevalence of mental illness, health disparities, on how to make these resources more available. This has been even more critical moving into this pandemic because we know that mental health tracks very closely with economic recession and anxiety associated with the epidemic in our region. This report will be even more valuable as we move forward and we work to expand our programs around opioid abuse and the prescription drug monitoring program. We've been able to provide 139 new housing vouchers through the Housing Authority, and we'll continue to work for more resources for homelessness and follow through with our Continuum of Care strategic plan. And these policies create a region that is more resilient, healthier, and more prepared, providing opportunities for everyone. Unlike the former county executive, I do attend the county council meetings on a regular basis, and I provide a report to the council each week. These reports are available online and on my social media account on the county's website as well. So this August election is a special election. I became county executive in April of last year after Steve Stinger resigned and went to prison. I'm running to fulfill the remainder of this 4-year term. And so there will be election again in 2022 for a new 4-year term. I led the resistance to Mr. Stinger's corruption when my opponents were largely silent, and I've been focusing on the county government on making fair and equitable decisions for all the residents rather than rewarding my political donors. That work and the response to the pandemic are things that I've already proven that I can do. Looking forward in the next few years, my focus will rest heavily on improving health outcomes, on improving the economy, and on public safety. But as I said before, this pandemic has exposed many of our weaknesses. First and foremost, we must vote to expand Medicaid so that more Missourians have access to health care. This affects us all. As a medical doctor, I understand this deeply, and for the past 14 years, since I first went to Jefferson City, I've been working on Medicaid expansion. This is a long time coming, and I'm glad to see it on the August ballot. And I'm very hopeful that it will pass. I'll be working to allow it to pass, to get votes to have it pass, and I'm sure that you all will too. I do remain very aware of the social determinants of health and work to make sure St. Louis County residents have access to what they need: fair wages, safe housing, quality education, childcare, access to healthy food, and access to public transportation. Beyond the social determinants of health, there are also political determinants of health, and whether or not your leaders are committed to doing these things. And while many of our state leaders are not, I am. And my actions, what I've done on the course of my career, and what I've accomplished over the past year show my dedication. I have a good working relationship with the healthcare system leadership in the St. Louis region, and I continue to hold all those in charge accountable. My work as county executive has shown that I have the political capital and the will to address these big issues, and if elected, I will continue to do so. There is no doubt that the economy has suffered, and we're using the CARES Act funds for direct relief to small businesses, and we're working together with businesses across the county to put together safe reopening plans and business guidelines. And those are all available on our STL Corona webpage as well. I'm very aware that access to childcare is a huge piece of a person's ability to participate in the economy and a huge piece of gender equity in the workplace. My office is working closely with members of the county council to set aside millions of dollars to support childcare for working families in St. Louis County. We'll work with St. Louis City as well to build a professional Department of Economic Development through the Economic Development Partnership, and we'll work together to attract businesses in our region. While I believe we need to stimulate growth in the county, I also believe that for us to succeed, the entire region must be successful, regardless of which zip code you live in. A zip code should not be used just to measure success in healthcare outcomes. It should be used to measure economic opportunity as well. And public safety is never far from our minds. With the recent murder of George Floyd opening wounds across our region, we must continue to recognize the drastically different experiences that our public safety system provides our residents. I support and continue to support a thoughtfully trained police department that is accountable for its actions and interactions, and I've appointed 4 outstanding county residents to create a new majority on the police board to ensure just that. The new police board has appointed a new police chief, Mary Barton, the first female police chief that our county has ever had. And I look forward to working with Chief Barton to build a culture of excellence within our department. And she knows I will tolerate nothing less, and I don't think she will either. We must root out violence in our communities and provide better options to those who feel they have no other. We must make sure that our justice system serves just that, justice. My administration believes that everyone should be treated with dignity, which is why we want emergency shelters and a jail that doesn't look the other way when inmates are sick. I will continue to work with Moms Demand Action to advocate for gun sense. There are too many injuries and deaths to accept anything less. I've been endorsed by labor, including the umbrella labor organizations, the Building Trades and the Labor Club of St. Louis County. And they represent over 20 individual unions and clubs. I've been endorsed by the Young Democrats, St. Louis Indivisible, and I've been co-endorsed by Planned Parenthood. With everything we've seen in our national and local politics over the last few years, I'm disappointed that there has been so much negative campaigning in this race. That's not what I'm about. It's not what this campaign's about, and you won't hear it from me. People's lives are at stake, and that's where I will focus my attention. I announced I'd be running for county executive last November, and I was committed to running before this COVID-19 pandemic. I'm even more committed to running now, and I believe my experience as a medical doctor, on the ground experience as county executive over the last year, makes me uniquely suited to remain county executive as we move forward. I know what this job takes. And since I have your attention once again, I want to remind everyone to vote to expand Medicaid in August, making sure thousands of Missourians have access to much needed health care. And like I said before, I've been exciting to expand Medicaid since my time as a state representative for the past 14 years. And I know this will make a big difference to all the people in our community who are struggling to get access to health care, especially during this epidemic. I also urge you all to vote against Dirty Missouri, which is the Republican response to Clean Missouri. If it passes, 25% of the total St. Louis County population won't even be counted properly when the districts are redrawn, and that's wrong. It's a clear attempt by Republicans to take political power away from communities with more children and immigrants, and I won't stand for it, and I don't think any of you will either. So at the end of the day, every day I look myself in the mirror and I ask if I did enough. Did I do enough to move the ball forward that day for you and for our community? Did I do enough to save lives, to save businesses, to save our most vulnerable? It's a practice I've had for years, ever since I first entered public office. And with only so many given days on earth and so many days in positions in leadership, I want to make sure every day I'm making a difference and it counts. And I'm here today really asking you to give me more days so I can keep doing good things for our community and I can guide us through this pandemic. I would be honored to have your vote in August and in the Democratic primary for county executive. And I appreciate every minute of your time, and I hope to earn your endorsement. You can find out more information about me at sampage.com and how to get involved in my campaign. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, let me start off by asking you, in October of 2019, a jury in St. Louis awarded a gay police sergeant nearly $20 million, which was later reduced by settlement to $10 million in a discrimination case involving claims that the department failed to promote him based on sex stereotyping, and retaliated against him for filing a lawsuit. At the time, you called for appointment of new members to the police board, which oversees the police chief. Can you tell us what actions have been taken since then to prevent discrimination and to try and limit future monetary damages to the county?
Well, we instituted several changes, actually. First of all, we settled that lawsuit recognizing that although those discriminatory practices took place under a different county executive with different leadership, that they were serious, and that this individual was harmed and deserved compensation. And we worked through that process. In addition, we created an Office of Diversity and Inclusion in the St. Louis Police Department. Lieutenant Wildhaber is in charge of that process, working closely with the police department to implement changes. Director Irby, director of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office in the executive branch of county government, has also worked with the police department in additional training. There's more in the works as we are looking for outside guidance to come in and do a deep review and a deep dive in the promotion process in St. Louis, in the St. Louis County Police Department, and make sure that it's fair and equitable, and that everyone has a chance to move forward based on the merit of their accomplishments, and that discrimination is not tolerated under any circumstances.
Okay. Next question. This has to do with the county library board. The St. Louis County Library Board decision to purchase land for a new library building received a lot of public criticism, both for the location and the land's cost. Under an agreement reached this April between the library district and the city of Frontenac, the new building complex will be smaller than planned. Now the board's members' terms had all previously expired, and you appointed some new members and reappointed the head for 1 year. You made remarks about trying to micromanage a board's decision not being a best practice. So the question is, what is the right level of oversight of boards, and whether that has been done in the past? Should oversight changes be made going forward?
So the county executive is responsible for 74 or 75 boards and commissions and over 450 appointments. My duty and obligation is to appoint people to those boards and commissions that represent are consistent with my philosophy and my policies, but also are diverse and represent the different interests and concerns and demographics of St. Louis County. And that's what I've done with all of my appointments. The previous library board had made a decision that had brought a lot of scrutiny to their practices, and they were criticized for spending several $1 million on purchasing this land. But then after we subsequently reviewed, we realized that they actually had purchased the land for less than its appraised value. But moving forward, I asked the new library board to work with the city of Frontenac to develop a facility that would be a good fit for the community, but would also provide the services that were needed for library patrons in St. Louis County. And that's what they did. They worked out a compromise to build a new facility there at Spady and Highway 64, and keep some of the services at their current facility, the library branch there at Lindbergh and Frontenac, Lindbergh and 64 and Clayton Road.
Okay. The next question has to do with the pandemic. As a result of the pandemic, St. Louis County will be hammered by reduced collection of sales and property taxes. Cities and counties facing fiscal stress need to plan how to reduce costs and raise revenues. How are you, or will you, go about doing this? Have cutbacks already been started?
So the first thing I did very early on, very early on in the process, is I instructed all of our departments to freeze hiring and stop any capital spending that wasn't related to the emergency response to COVID-19. We're working very close to understand all of our expenses, to track them closely, and to reimburse them under the federal grant, the federal stimulus grant. Some of that can be applied to the emergency operations expenses that we have had to absorb as a county. And then we're subsequently using it those stimulus funds to support our health department and providing critical life-saving services to our county. We understand that sales tax revenue has dropped. We're working on those projections closely. We have supported a Wayfair bill, an internet sales tax in the state legislature, because we believe that that's unfair to our local businesses, and that will help us bridge this gap. And the St. Louis County Port Authority is in the process of selling 2 very large properties in Clayton that will provide some one-time revenue to St. Louis County in several $1 million. We're also working in this lower interest rate environment to refinance many of the bonds that we're paying in St. Louis County, which will allow us a small amount of one-time revenue, but more importantly, lower the payments over time, similar to you refinancing your home mortgage when the interest rates are lower. But we're watching those projections very closely. We do not believe we're yet in the position of having to grant furloughs or layoffs in county government, but we're very, very attuned to the revenue picture, and we know that we will have some challenges.
Let me see. Steve, would you like to ask some questions from the chat or throw it open to?
We can turn to those. Excuse me. So Christina asked a question about what's going on in Minneapolis now. Is the same show in different towns across the country. How would your administration set the tone to avoid what is going on in Minneapolis? She also asked, what is your opinion about the police force in St. Louis City and the county? Do you feel the police are undertrained, understaffed? Is it the blue wall that prevents any changes?
So that's a very complicated, multifaceted question. I'll do my best to get through it, and you might have to follow up. We could talk for an hour on criminal justice reform, police community relations, community policing, the police department leadership and their training. But what we saw in Minneapolis with George Floyd was tragic and horrifying and shocked everyone in our country. And I immediately called to support the federal investigation to get to the bottom and understand what's happened. And we see that the local authorities there are taking steps in the right direction. But what I've already done in St. Louis County has been working to improve relationships between the police and our community, to change the direction of the police board by appointing 2 new members to the police board, new members that at times have been very vocal in expressing their concerns about the relationship between the police department and our community. And I believe they've taken us in the right direction. I do believe that the police board, which is responsible for all of the policy of the police department, should be diverse, and it should represent different opinions. And that's what we're seeing. We have a new Office of Diversity and Inclusion in the police department, where they're going through new training. And I do believe that we should have a well-trained and well-staffed police department that is responsive when it's called, but also responsible for its actions. And, when we see something like what happened in Minneapolis, we know that, those involved have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable for what happened.
A couple other chat questions here, at least a couple. Glenn Keenan has been asking this question of every county executive candidate. The county depends on sales tax revenue, including taxes collected on food sales, to pay its bills. Are you open to collecting more from property taxes and freezing or lowering the sales tax, especially on food?
I think I'd certainly be glad to listen and discuss anyone's suggestions on an overall budget plan, but I'd like to see the budget as a whole. We are a state that depends heavily on sales tax, less on property tax, and less on income tax. Every state puts that together differently, and it's a topic of vibrant conversations on a regular basis. But moving from sales tax to property tax, what we see in St. Louis County is we see a lot of property tax used to fund a lot of different interests, our fire districts, our zoo museum district, MSD, and in addition to county government and municipal governments and school districts. So any changes in the property tax would have to be very, very respectful to everyone who has access to it. And I understand the fragility and the tenuous nature of sales taxes in a recession, and we have to be very cautious when we plan for those sort of things.
So Don Logue has asked some questions in chat, and I'm going to ask Don if he wants to follow up regarding some of the questions that you were asking Sam on economic development and furthering fair housing.
Well, I think that in various public presentations have been made here in the last couple of years, the St. Louis metropolitan area underperforms when compared to other peer areas, and substantially. And so my question is, what would you do differently in contrast to your previous predecessors to stimulate economic development in the metropolitan area and make us more competitive in that review, in that comparison?
Well, to make us more competitive for economic development, we have to address the quality of life issues that we spent a lot of time talking about. Different businesses will have to want to move their headquarters here or move some business operations here, and the businesses we have will need to grow. A lot of that growth comes from small business. So a lot of our support has to be focused on small business, and that's why one of the first things I did in this COVID response was to create a grant program to keep our small businesses connected to their employees and to their customer base while we live through this partial shutdown. But moving forward, we need a strong and vibrant economic development operation. I believe that the economic development partnership, which works with the city and the county together, is important. We need more cooperative efforts between the city and county, and this is one front that I think where we can have progress. I appointed a whole lot of new board members to the Economic Development Partnership. They have new leadership over the past year. And I believe, even though I've only been in office a year, that we've made a lot of great movements. We've brought a lot of jobs to St. Louis County already with the expansion of Bunge and Pfizer, and we'll continue to work to do so. We worked very hard to make sure Bayer stayed in St. Louis as their world headquarters after their merger with Monsanto. And we will continue doing everything we can to work with our partnership and our 5 other economic development organizations: Civic Progress, the Regional Chamber, STL Alliance, Regional Business Council. Many organizations have a footprint here, and we work cooperatively with all of them through the Economic Development Partnership, and we'll continue to do so. And I think part of this is our brand, part of this is the tools we have, part of it's leadership, and part of it is recognizing the sectors where we're going to be successful. And that's in geospatial intelligence, plant and life sciences, and any sort of translation of research in our great universities to their market application. And St. Louis is one of the best places in the country for startups. And that's where a lot of our new businesses are going to come from. So that startup translation from research to new business in our incubators is a very, very important part of what we, where we work and where we put our energy.
So Steve, to follow up with the second issue.
And we're running kind of short on time.
But our fair housing, our affordable housing program in St. Louis is a train wreck, because we concentrate so many of these units in areas, food deserts, transportation deserts. I mean, these are neighborhoods that program people for failure, for lack of access to resources. What is your plan for addressing that issue?
Yeah, so I think when you talk about affordable housing and public housing, we do have to recognize for people to be successful that there needs to be affordable housing in all zip codes in St. Louis County and to not concentrate it. And we're working very closely with the Housing Authority, and we've created a new housing trust fund legislation that was sponsored by Councilwoman Lisa Clancy. And we just need to get more resources in this space and change our policies to make sure that we are pursuing affordable housing in all corners of the county and not concentrating it. I understand that public policy point, and we do recognize it and believe in it.
Okay. Susan, did you have anything else?
I would just like to thank Dr. Page for coming and presenting himself to our members. And I also would like to add that a lot of people have joined the meeting since the last announcement, and many of you are new to MOPAG. So if you are new and we don't have you on our mailing list, please send us your email address either to chat or to us at mopagstl@gmail.com, mopagstl@gmail.com, so that you will receive future meeting notices. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one more plug for information related to COVID. stlcorona.com should have answers to all of your questions, and feel free to share that website with anyone who needs help.
Thank you.
We will do that. In fact, I certainly have shared it around on our Facebook page, and I'll put it on our website as well. Thank you again for appearing today, Dr. Page.
Thank you. Thanks for what you guys are doing too.
Okay. So Mark Mantovani is our next scheduled speaker. And I've just unmuted him. So he had a funny little thing going on with his audio, and I wasn't sure what was going on there.
I was trying not to listen to Sam's presentation. I thought that would be unfair if I was listening to him. So I kept myself out of the conference until he disappeared.
This time I will give a little bit of an introduction to Mark Monavanni that I didn't give him the last time he appeared before MOPAG. After earning his MBA at the University of Pittsburgh, Mark began a business career that culminated in his CEO leadership of Ansira, one of the largest privately owned businesses in our region. Mark has been the board chairman of the Partnership for Downtown St. Louis and has served on the board of many local organizations as an advocate for growth and innovation in the St. Louis region. He was named a fellow at Harvard University in its Advanced Leadership Initiative program, where he focused on state and local governance. He and his wife, Patty, have 3 grown children, a number of grandchildren as well in the St. Louis region. We are pleased he is with us today to talk about his candidacy.
Thank you, Steve. How much time do I have, Steve? What should I plan for here?
45 minutes has been allotted.
Okay, for questions and answers too, right?
Right, that would
Good.
include questions and
Yeah,
answers.
okay, great. That's terrific. Thank you. I'll try to leave as much time as possible for questions and answers as I can. Thanks for the introduction. Appreciate it. I want to, first of all, I think begin by acknowledging what a difficult and unusual time this is in our region and in our country. This horrifying event in Minneapolis has renewed, if it were ever lost, our outrage, I think, around the kinds of disparate treatment that exists in our community. And I know that everybody with this group shares my feeling that this just has to end, and there has to be accountability. I've developed what I hope to be a good working relationship with the St. Louis County Police in the coming years, and yet they know my belief that there has to be accountability when there is this type of criminal, outrageous conduct. And in the face of that, the protests that we have seen, I think, are a crucial element in our country making progress. Unfortunately, the protests have sort of devolved into violence. And as I was reading about this, actually last night, I came across a quote by Martin Luther King, as prescient as always. He said, riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn the riots. A riot is sometimes the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? So, you know, while many of us who abhor the kind of violence and the horrible impact on innocent people, business owners, and whose lives are being affected by these riots, it's imperative that we remain focused, I think, as much on that fundamental challenge in the days ahead. And you know, we have felt this, of course, very clearly in the St. Louis area. And I tried to tweet last night around the issue of how much progress have we really made. Hopefully some, but I hope that you know, the Ferguson Commission report will be dusted off to the extent it has started to gather some dust, and we'll reevaluate some of those recommendations. So we can talk about that during the question and answers if you have other specific questions. Of course, the other thing that is is top of mind right now is COVID-19 and its impact in the country and on our community. You know, in some respects, I have a measure of empathy for our political leaders, because I believe that the science around the preparedness for COVID-19 has been inconsistent, and it's been sometimes difficult for political leaders to formulate strategies as the science has been evolving over the course of the past few months. I think, though, and I'm really not trying to be excessively critical here, I think the fundamental challenge of leadership in situations like both of these really has to do with communication and the ability to stand before the people and speak clearly and openly and collaborate with people around the changes, the challenges that are coming down the pike at us at all times. I hear today, every day, from people who are frustrated in the St. Louis region around our failure to reopen businesses quicker and the like. And I think as I sort of unpack those discussions, more of those have to do with the failure of communication than anything else. There hasn't been, in some cases, very clear definition of the kinds of efforts that are necessary relative to reopening and the like. And occasionally I'll get an email or some type of digital notice from a business that is struggling with its process of how to reopen. And some of them are so well done and so clear. And then I feel in our community, we're still grasping at straws from time to time about how to cope with this. And that is something that I do hold our current leadership responsible for, associated with a failure to communicate. Look, we can talk about that during the question and answer as well. COVID-19, at least in my opinion, did not create the problems that our region is facing. It is merely amplifying them, and it is about to amplify them in a greater fashion. Those of you, many of you who I've spent time with previously know that my primary concerns around our region have to do with the fact that for most of my life, most of your lives here, we've had a stagnant economic and population landscape, little growth. We have these continuing racial disparities. We have a crime problem that is significant and has to be dealt with. We've had insufficient regional collaboration, in my opinion, and yet we have persisted generally in electing sort of tired, somewhat timid political leaders, hoping that they will somehow or other create change in our community. And I think that's an unrealistic expectation, frankly. I think if we keep doing the same things, we will keep getting the same results that we have. And I view that as unacceptable. As you know, I have not been a career politician, as Steve indicated. This is only my second foray into elective politics. And as a practical matter, just between all of us, this is the only office that I will ever seek. It is the only job that I aspire to so far as serving the community. I believe that St. Louis County has a unique role to play, not only in our region, but in the state of Missouri. It is essentially the economic engine for our region and for our state. And I think that many of the reasons that we languish in some of these key areas is because our leadership in St. Louis County has not been particularly forward-thinking, looking, and aggressive with respect to creating change. So I guess I would be so bold as to contrast that with my primary competitors, who have, if you make a list of the various offices that they have run for, you pretty much cover every office in the state of Missouri. I mean, my primary opponents in this race have run for city council and state rep and state senate and state attorney general and lieutenant governor and county council and county assessor and county executive, which suggests to me that their primary focus has always been about what office they can aspire to next. And as I'm telling you, I'm only engaging in these efforts because I have great concerns about our hometown, about our community. I'm sick and tired of it being passed by other communities in the Midwest. You heard me say that in 2018, and I believe it to be true today. Our local government is still not focusing enough on the right substantive issues to create change in our community. 2 weeks before COVID-19 broke, the primary issue that the county council in St. Louis County was dealing with was what type of iPads to buy for prisoners in St. Louis County. At a time when 35% of African-American kids in St. Louis County are living below the poverty line, and our population is in decline, and we have an ever-growing homicide rate in St. Louis County, to be occupied in the weeds on such trivialities, in my view, suggests little real ambition for taking on the fundamental challenges of our community. Now, look, you guys know me. I'm not a career politician. I do believe, however, that there is enough competence in this community that if we get the right kind of leadership, we can address these things effectively together. We don't have that right now. We have a political class in St. Louis region that tends to do business the same way it did in the 80s and the 90s. It's essentially transactional. If you give me your votes, I'll appoint so-and-so to my administration. That's not the way fundamental change happens. fundamental change happens by engaging a broader context of the community. I happen to believe that by virtue of the fact that I have not been a political partisan in the same way that some of my opponents have been, I have a much better opportunity to create the kind of big tent that it will take to create the change in this community. It's probably not the kind of thing I should say to this group, but I believe it to be true. Progressives alone will not create the change that the St. Louis region needs, nor will conservatives, nor will business people or labor people, nor will blacks or whites. The only way we're going to create the kind of fundamental change we need in this community is if we have a leader that embraces people from all across the community, that brings them to bear on the challenges that we have, and that really creates an effort to work together in a different kind of way. If we remain as divided and partisan as we are within this region, we're going to continue to get the same outcomes. And I think that's unfortunate for the next generation of St. Louisans that will be leaving this place too. So once again, I have raised my hand and offered my service to try to create a different future for our community. I believe the county executive's role, in essence, is an executive level position. It is, in many respects, a chief executive level position. It requires a person who can build a team to administer competently. I don't think St. Louis County has been administered competently. The budget was blown before COVID-19 hit. The most recent forecast showed there was going to be about a $20 million deficit in the county budget before COVID-19. And with the diminution of the sales tax, which, my back of the napkin estimate would be anywhere from $60 to $70 million because of the shutdown of the economy, St. Louis County will have a dramatic budget shortfall in the coming year. We have to decide what type of leader we want to deal with those kinds of things. Now, look, I believe that our region has to grow its way out of some of our challenges. We have these fundamental social challenges that I think I share with most everybody in this particular meeting. We have these fundamental social challenges. But if we don't create a bigger economic pie in the St. Louis region, there won't be the resources to deal with them as we would like. If a pie is the same size or shrinking, nobody's going to get a bigger slice of pie. We have to create a better economic engine in this community to deal with the things that we really want to deal with, which is those kids growing up in poverty and the educational outcomes being bad and whatnot. Those are the things that we really care about. But we can't do those things if we don't focus on creating a more productive economic engine in the community. We just can't. I know, I'm perhaps subject to criticism because I had a lot of years in business, and this sounds like a guy who's just trying to focus on economics. It isn't just focused on economics. It's about the fact that we can't get to the stuff we want to get to if we don't create economic growth in this region. And I don't think anybody even has a plan. Look, we have a whole variety of different economic development organizations within the community. We have the Economic Development Partnership in the county government, we have the Regional Chamber, and we have Civic Progress, and we have the Regional Business Council. And I defy anybody to tell me what one organization's responsibilities are vis-a-vis the next, and how they're working together. There's no coordination in our economic development activities as a region whatsoever. And it feels to me that it is incumbent upon the chief executive of the largest jurisdiction, the largest region in the community, to coordinate that. I promise you, if I were to be county executive, one of the first things I would do would be to pull those people together and say, look, we have to develop a concerted strategy for how we're going to create economic growth in this region. And we'll develop strategies, and then we'll execute against those strategies. You can't just let these organizations just all run off and do their own thing with no coordination. This is why we're getting our butts beat by communities like Kansas City and Indianapolis and Nashville, because we have no concerted strategy. And so you can't execute if you don't have a concerted strategy. We have no metrics that are even communicated. Now look, I ran a business for a bunch of years. I promise you, I could have never achieved anything if at the beginning of the year, we didn't sit down and establish our objectives for the year, right? And communicate them. I communicated them to my board. I communicated to them, my employees. We communicated them to our customers half the time. We said, this year, we're going to do this. We're going to grow this by 10%, or this year, we're going to, all right? We communicated against a set of metrics. Nobody in government in the St. Louis metropolitan area runs like this. And I promise you, other communities do. The fact that we don't see it in St. Louis does not mean it's not happening. It's happening. We're just not doing it. I would imagine a scenario where I would stand in front of the people in St. Louis County at the beginning of the year and say, we are going to be committed to reducing the homicide rate in St. Louis County this year by 10%. And these are the strategies we're going to employ to do that. We're going to establish a program similar to Operation Ceasefire, which was a very successful program in Boston in the latter part of the 20th century, where there's a public-private partnership amongst the police, the prosecutors, and private interests, clergy, business interests, and whatnot. Wherein in Boston, they pulled together the people that they believed were most commonly involved in violent crime. And they said to them, look, we are going to sharpen our hooks a little bit in terms of watching what you're doing. And if you choose to continue to engage in violent conduct, we're going to intervene, right? Serious incarceration was threatened. But if you want a new start, if you have a housing issue, we're going to help you find housing. If you want to go back to school, we're going to help you go back to school. If you need a job, we've got businesses lined up who will give you a job. You're going to have to make a choice now about which way you go, but the violent life that you've been leading is not going to continue, right? And they dropped their violent crime, their gun violence statistics dramatically over the course of 5 or 6 years. Now, I'm not saying that St. Louis is Boston, and we have a different set of issues in many respects, but those are the kinds of initiatives that other communities across America have initiated in order to have an impact on an issue like that. And you work against a set of metrics, and you hold yourself accountable. At the end of the year, you go back and say, look, man, we thought we were going to reduce the violent crime rate by 10%. We didn't get it done, right? This is where we think we might have done better. And so as we go into the following year, all right, the mere having of that conversation with the community is a healthy thing. Unless you acknowledge your challenges and you commit yourself to trying to improve them, nothing positive will happen in the near term, much less the long term. I have a whole series of things that I'd like to talk with you about economic development. Obviously, economic development is most challenged in North St. Louis County. I think a lot about North St. Louis County in terms of how to create more economic growth there. I happen to believe that the University of Missouri at St. Louis is a diamond in the rough relative to economic growth in North County. For those of you who are so inclined and unfamiliar with it, sometime do a little Google search on Georgia State University. Georgia State University, which is not far, by the way, from where they're having such a problem in Atlanta right now. Georgia State University, I think, issues the largest number of African-American college graduate degrees in America now. 15 years ago, Georgia State University was sort of like UMSL. It was a commuter school. Today, it's a residential university, 40,000 students, Division I athletic program. They play their football games where the Atlanta Braves used to play baseball. It has driven job training, education in an underserved part of Atlanta in a phenomenal way. Look, UMSL trains our nurses, it trains our teachers 90% of the individuals who go to UMSL, graduate from UMSL, stay in the St. Louis metropolitan area versus 20% of the graduates from Washington University. Were I county executive, I would be pounding on the governor's door and the door of the board of curators in an effort to try to solicit more investment in creating UMSL as an institution that serves our community better, but that also is a beachhead for economic growth. I think there's real potential there. Another thing that I think a lot about is, one of the things we've learned recently in the COVID-19 process is that many business people can work remotely. As a practical matter, one can be working for a company in Seattle today and living in St. Louis, and we should be aggressive in these coming days in terms of trying to solicit employees to consider St. Louis as a home base. For $500,000 in St. Louis, you get an amazing home. For $500,000 in Seattle, you get about a 700 square foot apartment. And in this day where we've learned that people can work remotely, there are great opportunities for attracting people to our community. Along those same lines, I've argued before and would do my best to try to achieve the establishment of agents in Silicon Valley and on the Eastern Seaboard in New York or Boston or some such place, whose sole challenge would be to identify business opportunities for creating jobs in the St. Louis metropolitan area. Look, if you just think this through, I mean, there's such a great case to make. This is what I find so frustrating. We just don't make these cases well. Look, if you're a business executing financial trades, a brokerage business, St. Louis, I think, still has the second largest number of brokerage clearances next to New York City in America, what with Wells Fargo being here and Edward Jones and whatnot. If you're a business in New York and you want to build a back office operation, why do you want to build it in New York? It's going to cost you $150,000, $175,000 per person to have those people work in that back office. What I would do is I would solicit those people for relocating those back offices to St. Louis. And I'd say, offer all of your people an opportunity to move to St. Louis, right? Some of them will take it and they'll live very, very well on those kinds of dollars in St. Louis. Others will not take it, and they'll have to hire folks in St. Louis that they'll hire for $90,000 or $100,000 probably, driving the cost for the business down. That's a win-win for our region, for that company. These are the kinds of things that I believe a county executive should be seeing to these sorts of efforts. And again, I don't know if it's just a lack of knowledge, a lack of interest, or if buying iPads for prisoners in jails is that much more intellectually challenging, right? With respect to the social challenges that we have, I have been an advocate for a long time of the Forward Through Ferguson report. I think a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. We haven't executed against that report to our detriment, I believe. And I don't know why county government would not have played a more aggressive role in being engaged along the whole series of those challenges there. So, whether that's early childhood education from a child equity standpoint, the health equity, transportation equity, and the like. There was great work done there, and I think we all can see that we haven't followed up on that as well. So, look, I don't think our current administration is competent. I don't think they're very effective at communicating. I don't think they collaborate well with anyone. I don't think they have any idea what the word innovation means. And I think they're filling the office pretty much in the same way that the office has been filled in the past. I would ask for your consideration again. You were very kind and generous to me in 2018. I recognize that the demographics and the election is different this time. Oddly enough, I feel much more confident about being able to be effective in the role today than I probably did 2 years ago. And I would ask for your consideration. And I'm happy to take any questions now that you might have, and let's dig in wherever you like. Steve?
Steve, I'm looking at the list of questions. Mr. Mantovani has answered many of them, and some of the others I think would be
better at this time.
Not well suited to his concerns, and so I think I would like to go to the chat questions or to any extras.
Okay, let's do that.
Susan, does that mean I talked about what I was supposed to, or I didn't talk about what I was supposed to?
I think you talked about what you were supposed to, but we have some questions. Like,
good. Okay, I hope so, because I don't like to leave any time left over. I want to use it up.
If there's
we have some questions yet.
Okay, great.
He says, I think you could have won the primary and general election back in 2018 had you run then as a Republican, yet you chose to run as a Democrat. And now in 2020, in a tight Democratic primary. Why is that?
Well, I mean, the fundamental question is that I'm a Democrat, all right? I mean, that's the fundamental answer. First of all, I don't know if I agree with the conclusion there. I think the premise may or may not be accurate. I mean, for those of you who are historians, as I am, St. Louis County hasn't elected a Republican since the 1980s, right? So while I am today a Democrat, I also believe that the path was better as a Democrat. But I think I probably talked to you guys about this last time. It's important to me that I communicate this, because I fully expect my opponents will once again drag out some of which are fabricated, some of which aren't, references to I supported this guy, this Republican or that Republican or whatnot in the past. And sometimes I have to plead guilty to that. But the fact is that I've just evolved, my thinking has evolved as I've gotten older. I have come, I think like a Democrat today. I have come to believe that government is an instrument of executing the common good, and I believe in equality and opportunity. And even though I've always been a reader of history, it took me somewhat later in life to come to really appreciate the fact that it's been the Democratic Party that has driven most of the changes that improved ordinary folks' lives in America. And so there may be some Republicans in the group, I don't know, but I have to sort of run where I feel committed as a policy standpoint. Right. And with respect to winning or losing, I really want to win, because this is probably a terrible thing for a politician to admit to. I don't really like running for office very much. Right. I really don't. I think it's healthy. I think I grow because of it. Some of the things that one has to do in terms of raising funds and whatnot, running for office, are not my favorite thing in the world to do. But I really want the job. I really want the job. I think the job has been underutilized. I think it has the potential to create so much good that I'm willing to subject myself to the process of running in the hopes that I can serve. And you know, again, I'm sorry to drag on to you. I'm not filibustering. I just have a lot of things I want to say. The night of the election in 2018, people all around me, it was very close, right? It was coming in very close. People all around me were so nervous, And and I'm a pretty high-strung guy, but I was at total peace. It was very uncharacteristic of me generally, because I had run the campaign that I wanted to run. I had said what I wanted to say, and I sort of put it in God's, in the people's hands, and figured that whatever was going to happen for the best, you know? And I still feel that way about running for office. I want to do this right. I want to appeal to a broad section of this community because I think it would help me govern. But it's really a sincere commitment to want to help the community. And if the community declines my offer, that's okay. I mean, I will have met my personal responsibility of trying to help, which I feel an obligation to do. And if you know, if it doesn't go my way, it doesn't go my way. I will hold my head up high and say, look, I tried to help, and I'll continue to try to help as I can. But for me, it really is an effort in just trying to create progress in our hometown.
There is one previous question
Yeah.
that I want to ask that's big picture here. As a result of the pandemic, St. Louis County will be hammered by reduced collection of sales and property taxes. Cities and counties facing fiscal stress need to plan now to reduce costs and raise revenues. How are you or will you go about doing this? And should we be reducing outlays now?
Yeah, okay, so my fundamental approach to balancing budgets has historically been to focus on growing revenues, right? As opposed to reducing expenses. I suspect there are some places in the St. Louis County budget where there are probably savings to be achieved. The first place that I would look would be to the county's balance sheet. I think there are assets on the county's balance sheet that are being wasted. I know there are, right? I don't know that I can make up $75 or $80 million, but I'm pretty sure I can make up 30 or so. The county owns real estate that is being not used, vacant, in Clayton, that it has chosen to just ignore. The old 7-Up building, the county owns it. It's essentially vacant. County gets nothing out of it. The juvenile courts building on Brentwood Boulevard sits essentially on the Enterprise campus. Enterprise, which has been growing, right, has previously, I'm told, indicated an interest in acquiring that. County hasn't sold it to them, right? There's other real estate in Clayton. I don't get that, okay? I don't understand that. As a business person, why you are struggling with a budget and you have assets that are not being utilized on your balance sheet makes no sense to me, right? I used to tell people last time when I was running that if I got elected, first thing I was going to do is I was just going to go out there and put a damn for sale sign on that juvenile courts building there. It's got to be one of the most valuable pieces of property in the county, right? You know what I'm talking about. I'm right on Brentwood Boulevard there. And the county owns it and is doing nothing with it. Well, that's preposterous. Okay, so first place I look at is, if there are any, if there's any ways. Second place I look to is the balance sheet, right? And I think that's another thought is the county has significant bonding capacity that is underutilized. Now, you don't want to borrow money to pay operational expenses, and you don't want to borrow money to pay your employees, right? But I am at a loss to explain in a community where infrastructure is as challenged as ours is and whatnot, why we don't look at creating investment that will generate more revenue through our bonding capacity. You've got to invest, right? The whole little discussion that I walked you through on the economic development side has to do with the fact that, you know, people don't want to invest in St. Louis because they see it as a dying economy. And the NFL said that rudely to us on their way out the door. We have to convince people that this is a place to build either their futures, their lives, or to invest from a commercial business interest standpoint. One of the ways you do that is you make stuff happen. You show progress. And you know, I can think of a bunch of things that we don't have a mid-sized convention center in this region. We have a small one in St. Charles. We have a big one downtown. There's no mid-sized convention center. I've talked to two of the mayors of municipalities in the St. Louis County about that fact, and they have tracks that they would love to see. I mean, you have to create energy. You have to create activity. So the bottom line is we've got to create a growing economy here. That we have to grow our way out of some of these challenges. Okay.
Okay, Mark, we have a question from Don Logue. What is your plan for, and he has in quotes, affirmatively furthering fair housing in the metropolitan area?
Yeah, well, the housing initiative, I think, is one that I mean the council has been reasonably interested in most recently. I'm not a housing expert, and Don knows that. I think housing is crucial. I guess, you know, ironically, I have a tendency to think of housing issues in a little bit different way. You know, home ownership amongst African Americans in America today is lower than it was anytime since the 60s, right? The wealth gap that we have between African Americans and whites is in large measure due to the fact that home ownership is so low in the African American community. One of the things that we have to do is we have to utilize local lenders. We have to encourage more community banking efforts to invest in home ownership and housing initiatives and the like in the region. You know, Don, I would, we've exchanged notes on this in the past. I think we have, you know, we have a tremendous stock of housing that from a renovation standpoint that I would love to see more incentives for use of it. I would love to see community banks be more engaged in creating more home ownership. I would love to see those same local banks, by the way, be more engaged in providing resources for African American entrepreneurs and incubators and the like. We have to invest in that part of our community across the whole range of economic issues, not just housing, but also business interests and banking and the like. Beyond that, I'll catch up with you later on it.
Okay, we have one question from Christina. With COVID-19, how would you handle the pressure for keeping business open and I guess with respect to the safety of people?
Yeah, so I mean, look, the first requirement has to be health and well-being of the community. I mean, every life is precious, and so the first requirement is to make certain that we're using proper care to keep people safe. There is a lot of pressure today amongst business owners to reopen because their economic lives are being ruined. I think that one of the things that I would like to do is to have more of a dialogue with those business owners around the issue of whether they can open safely. Okay, some businesses I think probably can open safely, and I think that the county could be much more engaged in that process. Regular checks and training for employees, I think, screenings and the like, enhanced cleaning protocols, capacity restrictions in terms of the number of people at a time, face coverings and requirements, contactless operational models where you conduct your business without personal face-to-face direct contact, virtual encounters and the like, curbside encounter. I mean, there are a myriad of things, private appointment, there are a myriad of things that people can do. The point is, I think when we first started this, we thought the economy was either going to be open or closed, right? But I think it's correct that it is not an on and off switch, it's a dimmer switch, right? And it's a dimmer switch based upon how the community is performing at a given point in time and what the nature of a business is. I think there should be communication and collaboration on this stuff. I don't think it should be dictatorial. I think there should be collaboration. I think that when people feel disregarded, they react negatively and don't cooperate. You know, this horrible event down in Lake of the Ozarks last weekend brings this to mind. This is a very complicated challenge. While health is the priority, health is a bigger issue than just this disease. Mental depression is rampant. I read a Harvard article yesterday, I guess it was, that suggested that the rate of depression among 18 to 25-year-olds is 2.5 times what it was in February. Think about it. Think about those kids. I'm not trying to justify what was going on down in Lake of the Ozarks, but think about those kids. Some of them are in college. They get sent home from college. They don't get. They have no social life. They can't get jobs. They were independent in a way before. They're put back into a dependent lifestyle. We have to be sensitive to a broader set of medical issues than just the virus. Now, the virus is the overwhelmingly biggest risk today, so we have to be aggressive in that respect, but it takes a little bit more care and thought, I think, in order to develop ways in which businesses can operate in a way to keep people safe, allow people some outlet, and still hopefully preserve their business. But it's very difficult. I have a friend who's got a restaurant who is operating his restaurant with 25% capacity now, you know? Yeah, this is a successful restaurateur. He said it was tough enough to make a living at 100%, right? At 25%, he's keeping some of his people employed, right? But that's about all that can be said for it. But then maybe that's enough for right now. What I rejected was, and do reject, is the notion of the way this has been handled in the county with sort of dictatorial communication. You're shut down indefinitely. Wrong expression, right? Again, you have to tell people what's going on, right? What's motivating you, what statistics you're looking at, what your objective is. Just saying you're shut down indefinitely is an insult to people who are trying to run a business, who are interested in what they're going to tell their employees about when they're going to open, what they can do for their employees, and the like. So My biggest beef has been with the level of communication more so than the actual execution of some of the shutdowns.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I think we've come to the end of our questions, prepared and otherwise, for today. So I want to thank you very much for coming and giving us your vision
Thanks, Steve.
for St. Louis County.
Thank you. If I could just say one last thing, and that is this. There is reason for optimism about St. Louis. We have a pretty good livable community here. We have a lot of issues that we haven't dealt with because our leaders haven't allowed the people here to deal with them. The people in St. Louis are no better nor worse than the people in Nashville or Kansas City. Our leadership has let us down. And so I want you to know that I think we can turn this around and make St. Louis a growing, vibrant community. I think we can address our social challenges, but we have to be willing to change. And the first thing that we have to change is our leaders. So that's all I've got, Steve. Thank you. I'm sorry for the finale.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you again for appearing with us today, Mark.
My pleasure, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces there. Nice to be with you. All right. Have a great weekend. Stay safe.
I'd like to go over a couple of items. One is our endorsement procedure. MOPAG is going to be reaching out to our members very soon to vote on, first, whether they want to make an endorsement for county executive. And secondly, in the event MOPAG does want to endorse, we want them to cast their vote for one of the four candidates: Mantovani, Page, Jamie Tolliver, or Jake Zimmerman. We will then summarize and announce the results on our website and by press release and on Facebook. I want to remind you, for some of you may have joined later, I want to back up a moment. On June 2nd, we have municipal elections and various propositions on the ballot. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch, in concert with the League of Women Voters, has got a voter's user's guide out there, both in hard copy and on the website. I posted the website at the very beginning of our chat session. It is stltoday.com/votersguide, stltoday.com/votersguide. So you might be interested in that. So as was mentioned, on August 4th, we have a primary, and we will have the Medicaid expansion on that ballot as an initiative. There are conservative groups that have filed a lawsuit to remove Medicaid expansion from the ballot. A group called Americans for Prosperity, Missouri. If you want to know more, there's an article in the Kansas City Star, I believe today or yesterday, on that. Now, it was my impression that Cleaner Missouri, or as we call it, Dirty Mo, was going to be on the ballot in August. Does anybody have information on that, one way or the other? Okay. So I guess that may still be to be determined. Okay. I'd also like to make an announcement about our regular monthly meeting that we do here at MOPAG on the 13th of June. We will have Nicole Galloway speaking on her candidacy for governor and a new way for Missouri. She will be followed by our panel on progressive capitalism and how it could help Missouri. Our panel members will be Amy Bluen, CEO of the Missouri Budget Project, two of our MOPAG members, Glenn Keenan and Don Logue, and Joseph Stiglitz. Joseph Stiglitz is currently a professor at Columbia University and is Nobel laureate in economics. Professor Stiglitz has held the highest position of numerous national and international economic organizations. He's been an advocate for a capitalism that works much better for everyone. And he has been an advocate actually for decades. How, you might ask, did we get a Nobel laureate as a panel member? Well, we asked and we got lucky. So we'll put an announcement out in the next day or two on our website, mopag.net, and also to our membership and to the press. In the meantime, before the 13th of June, I suggest you search on Stiglitz Progressive Capitalism or Stiglitz Podcast to learn more. Susan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
YouTube also is a source for information on Stiglitz.
Yes, he's done some interviews there on YouTube as well. Okay, I think that about does it for us today. It's a beautiful day out there. I was out at Queenie Park early this morning, and it doesn't get any better than that out there. So there's still part of the day remaining. Thanks again.
Before we close, we might want to ask if anyone has anything to add, anything they want to say.
Of course.
Might want to unmute everybody at this point.
Well, I think you should be able to unmute yourself.
Don and Lloyd have indicated they want.
Hold on.
Or is Lloyd having trouble unmuting? I think they're having trouble unmuting themselves.
We can do it now.
I'm trying to unmute Dawn.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ron.
Well, I can, you hear me? I'm unmuted, I think.
Yes, we can hear you,
I have
Ron.
nothing to add.
Oh, okay.
I yield my time to someone who has something intelligent to say.
Okay, Dawn, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Don's still muted.
I'm trying to unmute him.
He has to do it himself.
I think so.
Dawn?
I've asked Dawn.
Click on your picture, Don, and you should, at the lower left hand,
He did it.
There you go. There you
Did
go.
it.
Good.
No, the one in the picture wasn't working, but the one down the lower, anyway. So, yeah, I would just say that, we've had good presentations. And I think that, there's value in each one of these candidates we looked at, as I'm sure you all probably feel the same way. I have to say that I believe Mantovani touched on a lot of the really important buttons today. Those are all things that I've been working on for 5 years here, beginning in Ferguson. And so I do agree, we need a change in leadership here. Now, as to who that's going to be, that's another question. But I just want to underscore that he said the right things. And there are other issues involved, but I think it's important that as this debate carries forward, we begin to talk substantively, about those types of issues.
Okay, thanks, Don. Any other comments?
Just one quick thing. While everything is going on with the pandemic, the Trump administration behind the scenes is preparing a system to gut food stamps and WIC. And it's hard to get publicity on that because everybody's looking at the pandemic and all of Trump's other dumb moves. So don't be surprised if you see something in the paper or emails from different groups about the threat to food stamps. It's very real. The threat to WIC is even more pronounced. It is very possible in 6 months we won't have a WIC program.
Glenn, can he do that with the Democrats controlling the House?
They can do that by administrative rules through USDA. They can make it so that nobody can follow the rules. They can make the rules more restrictive. For example, they were able to use administrative rules to allow people to use their food stamps to get food delivered to their home.
Right.
You can also use the administrative rules to say, well, you can't get cookies delivered to your home. You can only buy from certain